And so I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do, and it cannot be sustained.
Thank you, Karine. In 2021, President Biden called Georgia's election law changes new Jim Crow laws that were antithetical to who we are. They imposed voter identification requirements, limited use of drop boxes, and gave state officials more power over local elections. And then in 2022, Georgia did have record turnout, but you had argued from the podium that there was voter suppression. Does the White House still believe that that was true?
I don't have anything else to add from what I stated last time.
So does the Florida party then effectively canceling the Democratic primary also constitute voter suppression?
I can't speak to that.
Why not?
You have to speak to the campaign or the DNC.
Does the White House have any thoughts on those voters being?
I can't speak to that.
Is it because of the Hatch Act, or?
You're talking about 2024 election, you're talking about a primary, I'm just not going to speak to that from here.
The White House and the President were very vocal about Georgia's new election law when it was signed in March of 2021, and a big argument from the White House was that it would suppress voting. But there was record turnout in the primary, there was record turnout in the general, record turnout in the runoff, in early voting, absentee ballots, and in-person voting. So is the DOJ going to drop their lawsuit against the state?
I can't speak to DOJ's actions and what they're going to do.
The President, though, called it Jim Crow in the 21st century and a blatant attack on the Constitution. So does he still see it that way?
I'll say this, I'm not going to speak to the Department of Justice legal actions. That's something for them to speak to. What I can say, and not going to get into specifics of your question, but you all reported this, that there was suppression, that we saw that throughout the Georgia election. So that is something that was been reported on. So I leave it to those reports.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
He compared this time to a previous time in our history, which is apt for comparison.
New laws designed to suppress your vote, to subvert our elections. To them, too many people voting in a democracy is a problem. So they're putting up obstacles. What in the heck are we talking about? I mean, think about it. That's not America. That's what it looks like when they suppress the right to vote. Their end game, to turn the will of the voters into a mere suggestion, something states can respect or ignore. Jim Crow 2.0 is about two insidious things: voter suppression and election subversion. That's the kind of power you see in totalitarian states, not in democracies. And that's not hyperbole. What we choose: democracy over autocracy, light over shadows, justice over injustice. I know where I stand. I will not yield. I will not flinch. I will defend the right to vote. Our democracy against all enemies, foreign and, yes, domestic. The question is, where will the institution of the United States Senate stand? Every senator, Democrat, Republican, and Independent, will have to declare where they stand. Not just for the moment, but for the ages. Will you stand against voter suppression? Yes or no? That's the question they'll answer. Will you stand against election subversion? Yes or no? Will you stand for democracy? Yes or no? Here's one thing every senator and every American should remember. History has never been kind to those who've sided with voter suppression over voters' rights. And it would be less kind for those who side with election subversion. So I ask every elected official in America, how do you want to be remembered? At consequential moments in history, they present a choice. Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis? This is the moment to decide, to defend our elections, to defend our democracy.
And when I look at where we are now, Rev, and I think about these powerful forces, these, as I call them, extremist so-called leaders who are, I believe, intentionally waging a full-on attack against those hard-won, hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights, I feel compelled, as I know we all do, to basically, you know what, not on our watch. No. I mean, can you imagine, Rev? In the United States of America, we went through all these fights, the March on Washington, John Lewis, all that, and these so-called leaders who are so bold as to unapologetically propose and pass laws to make it more difficult for the American people to vote. The gall
God.